sorts of things that drive worry in our lives. Peculiar things sometimes, because for one person, worry will be so different to another. For one person, an area that will cause worry will be an area of joy for another. And they can reverse in the things they have. I wonder, have you ever understood where the word worry comes from? I found a little quotation. Worry, we are told, is from an Anglo-Saxon word which means harm, and is another word for the form of the word wolf. It is something harmful and bites and tears as a wolf which mangles a sheep. There are times, no doubt, when we must feel anxious about things because of harm suffered or anticipated by ourselves or others, and this may be beneficial because it does arouse some necessary activity. But often, worry has the opposite effect, paralyzes us and unfits us for duty, and also distracts our thoughts and obscures our vision. That's a pretty clear picture of what worry is all about. And all of us have experienced at different times worry in our lives. Worry that can get at us. I wonder, have you ever thought about the old days when missionaries first started going overseas and cameras were invented? This one's fairly oldish. And if I zeroed in on any of you here, need to make sure we've got everything right. If I zero in here and I want to take your photo, do you know what that would do in some lands, even today? There would be fear. I'd be likely to lose my life simply because people were worried that I might be capturing them in this box. And I might be going to do something with them, because you see, in their society, if you build a little model of a person, you take some image of a person and you put pins in it, you're practicing voodoo. How do they know what you're going to do with it? You might even burn it. You might cause them to suffer. That causes them to worry. All sorts of things create worry in our lives. But I want to have a look now, the actual effects of it. What are the effects of worry on us? The first one I want to touch on is it depowers and it demotivates us. It robs us of the ability to function well. You know, sometimes we can think, I'm going to do all right, but then we can get worried about the smallest thing. I was just waiting for our team here this morning to go through the whole process about the daughter, and then one of them to say, no, she is 29 years old after all. What difference does it make? You know, if she was 17 or 29, or we know if she's 6, we probably wouldn't have let her go out on her own. But what are we saying when we worry? And what is it actually doing to us? It robs us of being people who can have hope and expectation, and it robs us of being able to enjoy things. It depowers us from being able to make good decisions, because you can't make good decisions, while worry is so pervasive, while worry is so much in your face, while worry is right there getting a hold. The second thing it does in its effect, it generates a negative spirit. You know, I know a lady I've known for many, many years. This lady always worries. She worries about everything. And the consequence is that she actually has no friends, no real friends. Because people don't really feel comfortable about being around her. Some of us have tried to care for her, but the net outcome of it has been that her negative spirit is so powerful that just to be around her has the impact of depowering others. Not only has an impact of depowering, it has an impact where you start thinking, oh my goodness, I'm starting to think the same way. So what actually happens there, that negative spirit, it shows out in all sorts of ways in this particular woman that I've known for many years. And then the next one, it alienates us. It actually alienates us, like this woman I just spoke about, from others. It alienates us from the possibility of achieving what we could achieve. Because we've been depowered and nobody really is interested in somebody who's going to be worrying all the time. Nobody is going to consider that person significant. Even if they are the most skilled person around, worry will alienate us. Because who wants to work when there's always worry? Then the next one. It robs us of the ability to believe. Now, if I'm always worrying, how am I going to actually make good, clear, sound decisions? Whether it be in the home, in the workplace, whether it be in some club, or even, dare I say, in a church. Because I think for some people, people who are outside the church look inside and they see some people in here and they will say, oh, they're just hypocrites. Why did they say it? Well, for most of them, it's not because they're doing things like sneaking off to take a bit of a quick gamble or they're having sex on the side or something like that. It's actually often more subtle than that. It's often the little wee things that are there, that are evidence of a contradiction in terms. I believe and I have faith, but I'm going to worry about it every day. Oh, I'm worried about my kids. I never, That's what I'm going to believe. Oh, yeah. Give my husband a hard time or my wife a hard time or whatever. It really does rob us of the ability to believe, not only in our own ability to do things, but it robs us of the ability to even believe for others in a healthy way. In fact, the impact will be that in the end it'll rob them if they stay around long enough. But it also impacts the ability to believe almost anything that's true. Whether it be some story that you're told that's an amazing story, you'll sit there and in the end the impact of the worry will have other spin-offs and it goes down the cycle. Just one thing after another. It's like a pack of cards falling. Or dominoes. I would love to do the domino thing, but we couldn't do dress rehearsal here on stage and have my dominoes set up. I'd love to have dominoes, 10,000 of them worked across the stage here. And you touch the one, you knock one over, and all over the stage you'd see them all go. See, the net effect of one little push is the whole thing collapses. For some people, that's the reality that happens. We can have all sorts of things about being worried about things. Some people who are in charge of others worry. The story of Mr. Jones, who was always arriving late at work. He's constantly arriving late at work. He's constantly making excuses. So one day the boss decides, the big boss, he comes out, he sees Jones pulling walking into the office. As he's walking to the office, he goes up to him. Jones, what's your excuse now? He says, gotcha. Jones says, oh boss, it really is a good excuse. He says, sir. He says, it went like this. First thing this morning, my wife needed the car, and she forgot that she had to be up early. So she got dressed in 10 minutes, and we got going. I thought, great, we're going to be there. So he said, then what happened? She took me to the airport because the roads were jammed up, and I knew that Mr. Trump had his helicopter there and that he flew into town. So I went and I paid him for a ride to get to work on time. And sir, he says, I got in his helicopter and we flew to the top of the main pad in town, and I climbed out of there, and sir, then the lifts were jammed in the building. He says, sir, so what I did, I went down the escalator, but one of the escalators was stopped, so it kept us waiting half an hour. And so, sir, he says, so then once the escalator got going again, I ran off the bottom end of it and I ran to the office here, and just as I went to come in the office, some silly Billy had mucked the card slide up And so I stuck my card and I put it through several times, and then I realised my card was round back to front, so I put it the right way, and the door opened, and here I am, sir. Boss looked at him and shook his head. Incredible story, he says. Just, I'm not prepared to believe it. Why not, sir, he says. Your wife getting changed in 10 minutes, you're kidding. You see, the guy had allowed things to control him. You ever heard of getting stuck on an escalator? You can run down one. You see, the thing is, for all of us, we do have moments where we worry, when we shouldn't. The last one I have on this section here, it changes our physical appearance. And it does. It does. People who constantly worry, you can see it on their faces. You can read it like a book. Women become older earlier than they expected. You know, when we were turning 49 this year, my wife thought we were turning 48. She's a little shocked to think she's turning 49. She went through this great trauma about the whole thing, and we talked about it, and I just was trying to be caring and loving, and I laughed at first, which was a mistake. I was trying to be caring and loving, and we were sort of sitting there. I said to her, well, darling, I says, one thing about it, we might be 49, but we don't look like it, do we? She said, no, she says, I ain't got many wrinkles, have I? And it reminded me of a person recently who gave us a quote. They says, you know, I used to feel sad until I sat there and looked at the wrinkles in the mirror and thought to myself, at least they don't hurt. You see, some people sit there and worry about the wrinkles. They're inevitable. Sooner or later, they're going to come. It doesn't matter. But we worry. I was surprised the other night to see on television a program being advertised, and they talked about people who were getting things done, you know, facelifts and that. And I expected some of the ones that they showed very briefly to have had facelifts. You know, they needed it. But you know the one that really surprised me, that I saw that had a facelift? John Wayne. What a shocker. Facelift? Didn't change much. I mean, excuse me for saying John, but you know. You see, it does change our physical appearance, worry. Now, I'm not sure whether these people had their facelifts and things for that reason. I wouldn't have a clue. But I know plenty of people, and I've known plenty of people in my life, who, if you look at them, you can see the impact of worry on their faces. That shows. You know, it only needs to be a small thing sometimes that'll set worry. I've a number of times in my own life had times where I've worried when I shouldn't have. And people have come up to me and says, you all right, Gary? Now, why did they say it? Because I hadn't said a word to them. Because they looked at my face and they knew I was worried. I didn't have to put a big, I'm worried sign in front of my face. They just looked at me and they knew. They knew. And if I kept worrying long enough, they'd know every day. So think about the implications of that. If you want to look beautiful, ladies, stop worrying. Yeah? Guys, do you like that idea? You lot are a bunch of wimps today, guys. Come on. You see, it does affect our physical appearance. It does affect us. And for some people, real worriers, people who really, really worry a lot, it actually makes them look sickly. It actually makes them, they don't change and look good for moments even. They take on an appearance, and some of the people involved in the medical profession have done research on this kind of thing, talk about the impact it has on other aspects of their health. So Dr. Anderson, who's a well-known person in this whole area, who talks about the impact it has not only on the outside, but what it does to us inside. They now attribute a number of illnesses in a lot of people. Not in every person who has the same illness, but a lot of people who have these particular sicknesses and illnesses, and there's a number of them, It's caused through worry. One of the really not so recent studies that's been done but doesn't seem to be known about in New Zealand very much, I was reading about it, was the number of people who have epilepsy. There's been one doctor who's done a lot of work on this, and he's discovered that there are people who have epilepsy, yes. But there are a number of people who have a type of stress syndrome that causes things like epilepsy. But not only epilepsy, heart conditions, all sorts of things happen because of the stress they put on themselves through worry. So it does change us. So let's have a look now at this whole business of worry from another side. Now, what are you worried about? What are the things that affect you? There were 3 men once who were shipwrecked in a South Pacific island. All 3 of them were on this island, and they were sort of, sitting there thinking, well, what's going to happen? They knew that their ship was a cruise ship that had been way off route, and that's why they had the shipwreck in the first place. They're stuck on this island. As they're wandering around the island, one of them's kicking in the sand, and bang, he hits his toe on something. Well, what was that? So he digs in the sand, and out he pulls out a genie lamp, and he polishes it, not thinking about it, and so poof, this genie pops up. See? Genie pops up and looks at him, 3 guys, Hey man, I've only got 3 wishes left. I haven't got 9 wishes, so you're going to have 1 each, he says. Okay, they said. So they thought, this is great. So in case the genie said, where would you like to go? The first guy, he said to him, well, I love my family. I'd just love to be back with my family. And so if I can just go to my family, just like that. And genie, poof, and he's gone. Went to his family. The second guy, the genie turned to him and said, well, where would you like to go? He says, well, I'm single, I don't have any family, and I'm really wanting to live the life. So, I was on this cruise, so I want to go on another cruise. And this time, one without a shipwreck. Poof, he's gone. The third guy was a real warrior. He sat there, we don't want to go. What should I do? If I go the wrong place, will it be no good for me? Will I get there? And he's worrying. He thought, man. The genie said, hurry up, I haven't got all day. He said, I'm really having trouble making up mine. I wish the other 2 guys were here. See, the impact of worrying does impact others. So the cause of it. What is the cause of it? This whole business of fear, that thing there, is so powerful that happens to be one of the major causes of worry. We fear to change jobs because it might not work out. We don't like what we're doing, but it must be worse there. We're afraid to do things. We're afraid to change things at home. We're afraid to talk about issues that need to be talked about. And it happens to all of us at different times. And ideally, a person in the church, a Christian, should not have it happening as much, but some of them do. The reality is that I think fear is a thing that will stop many people, like, for example, coming on stage. I was amazed recently, there's a woman in our congregation here who has had every reason not to want to be here on the stage. It took a lot of courage for her to make the decision, and nobody coerced her in any sense or form, but she came to us and said, I know I need to do this. Fear will predominate. She does a great job. I remember some time ago when we were building this building, there were 2 people I distinctly remember in relation to fear. One was one who says, oh no, I said, do you want to ride up in the cherry picker? We were up to about here somewhere on the roof. Do you want to ride in the cherry picker? Come up and have a look. It's going up to do a bit more work. No, I'm not getting in no cherry picker, he says to me. Well, Kuru and I were naughty boys, and we grabbed him and barreled him into the bucket, and I held him there and took him for a ride. I was feeling a bit guilty on the way up. Thinking, man, I may have done the wrong thing here. We got to the top and we were overlooking the whole area, and I took the cherry picker way above the roof. Had the capability of reaching 14 metres. We were just about all the full length. And he looked around and said, "Man, I never thought this looked like this." He was just so blown away with the whole experience, he forgot about his worry, his fear. He came down, he says, "I did it." He did it. He had no choice. However, there was another woman, Anne, in the church here. She said to me, "I hate heights, and I'd never go up a place like that." I said, "Go on, go up." She thought about it. She climbed up that there catwalk, up a ladder that she'd never go up. She walked right across that there catwalk, and she stood on a little chair that was very, very small, child's chair, and gave her enough height to clamber onto the roof. We got her up onto the roof, and she stood on the roof, and she said, "I did it." See, the difference between her and the other one was that she chose to defeat the fear, and she did. And she felt so good about it the next few weeks, and I think still today. Is that right, Anne? You know? You see, fear will cause us to worry and depower us, cause us to be people who can't do the things we would like to do. The second one is anxiety. Linked strongly with fear, but often not recognised as being one and the same thing in some senses, and I think we will treat it separately here. Anxiety is something where we become so anxious, maybe this, maybe that, One of the worst things I've ever experienced was the beginning of a school year when a parent couldn't cope with trusting her children to go to school, and this particular child, her first child, to go to school. She eventually sent the child off to school, was really upset, really traumatised. Her anxiety was so great, she left a note saying why she committed suicide. Because she was worried about a kid. I found that incredibly impacting. She was no longer there to care for the child, and yet she was the best one to do it. See, worry can do some horrible things. Anxiety can rob us of who we are meant to be. So anxiety can creep up on us in all sorts of little shapes and forms. We've had a bit of a journey where girls have all grown up. Our youngest is 19, almost to turn 20, no longer will be a teenager. We went through these experiences where Pauline and I would talk about it. The girls were going out with a group of the guys for the night. If you knew some of these guys, you would know why we could be anxious. Only kidding. But it doesn't matter who they are. Any parent, any father, especially of his daughters, is going to feel protective, and so is the mother. But there's a difference between being protective and wise and being anxious. I would wait up at night for them to come home. There was only one night where I became anxious. It was 1:30, heading on for 2:00, and still weren't home. I went and woke my wife up, and Pauline said to me, "Oh, didn't you know they're staying out tonight?" Didn't I feel like a dill? It's the way it goes sometimes. Anxiety depowers us. It does. The third one, unrealistic expectations. When we're hoping for things that are just not even real. And worry can creep in, If I don't get this, it's never going to be good. And I'm no good. And in the end, it's destructive. In the end, it's destructive. We need to be realistic. I will never be able to do some of the things that some of you can do. You will never be able to do some of the things I can do. And that's probably a good thing. Otherwise, there'd be one congregation member sitting there and the rest of us trying to preach at the same time. Or whatever. You know what I'm saying. All right, the fourth one. Unhealthy agendas cause worry. Unhealthy agendas are agendas which are not good for us. Right, for example, it is no good saying, I really desperately want to be rich and every cent I have, I'm going to try and save it, and I'm worried when the wife spends $1 more than we anticipated for the budget this week. That's not healthy. The agenda is not healthy there. You should be able to enjoy life. And so what if somebody else has $1 million and you don't? Don't forget Howard Hughes, who was one of the wealthiest men in his day, was one of the most unhappy men in his day. And along with many others. See, money is not a good agenda in itself. But there are other unhealthy agendas in relationships. The unhealthy agendas in the things we try to do to manipulate others. They'll make us worry. Because we're worried that it's going to kick back on us in some way. Something is going to go wrong. If our agendas are unhealthy, it'll show up in the amount of worrying we do. You'll know. And then the last one on my list here. Wasn't the last one. Couldn't think what it was. So I want to move on right now to talk about being free from worry. Now, there was a lady who had never flown an airplane before. They took off from the airport, and it was a night flight. And as they took off, they were flying around, and she kept looking out her window. She had a window seat, and she kept looking, and she got worried that they weren't going to make it to their destination, because all the time she was totally convinced that they were turning to their right. She was sitting on the right side of the plane. She called the hostess over and said to the hostess, "Hey, please, I'm really worried. Are we going to get there?" And the hostess said, "Yes." Oh, she says. She sat there for a while long. She kept looking out the window and looking at the hostess and thinking, these guys don't know where they're going. She said, "Are you sure the pilot knows where we're going?" "Yes, madam, he's flown this route hundreds of times." Oh, she says. But the worry kept pervading her. And then she said to the hostess, "Look, we're never going to make it." And the whole plane started worrying and the concern. What's happening? This lady's panicking. And the hostess tried to calm her down. Went over and said, "It's all right, dear. It'll be fine. We're going to get there." "How can we possibly get there?" And the hostess said, "Well, why?" She said, "I've been watching out the window all the time, and he's had his right-hand indicator going the whole time." She just imagined they were going in circles. You know, there's a way of being free from worry. There is a decision aspect to it. But the first thing is, I think we need to address issues. Let's be realistic. Sometimes the things we worry about seem to be well founded. There's only one way of dealing with them. You just can't just ignore them. We need to pick it up. We need to face the issues. We need to address the issues. We need to face it. If we're worried about somebody else, maybe we need to go and talk with them. If we're worried about a situation, maybe we need to check up on it properly. Not just sit there imagining. We need to address the issues that we're facing. If we know we have worry that's unrealistic, and a lot of us do suspect that when we have worry, we need to address that issue. Maybe even get some counselling for some people to help us get past the problem. You see, worry is often something that's generational. It's not passed down through genetics. It's passed down through action in a family. One person worries, rubs onto the child, rubs onto their children, rubs onto the other children. Sometimes it rubs onto the partner in their marriage. You know, those kinds of things. I see some people out there nudging each other right throughout the congregation. That's a bit of fun. All right. Putting things into perspective. If we're going to stop worrying, we need to get it into perspective. When I told my wife what I was doing, she said, "I know what you're going to put on your sheet." She was right. See, I think we need to ask ourselves this question. In God's vast eternal plan, Does it matter? The issue I'm worried about, is it something that I should be concerned about? Really? I mean, God's much bigger. In fact, if you take notice of what was read out earlier today, and some of us here may not have thought about this, watch out! Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. A lot of our worry has to do with that. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. The number of women I've known have gone to go out, they've got dressed, and I've been worried it's not going to quite look right. It was good to see that it was a guy showing up on the thing today doing the same thing. Because men do it too. Just that women talk about it and guys don't so much. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you by worrying, listen to this, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? In fact, some medical people would say you actually steal hours from your life. There's a new thing to worry about, isn't it? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? And I want to sort of come to a conclusion today that we have the ability to really live in hope, not in worry. I have a poem here. Why worry? Why worry? What can worry do? It never keeps the trouble from overtaking you. It gives you indigestion and woeful hours at night, and fills with gloom the passing days, however fair and bright. It puts a frown upon your face and sharpness in your tone. You're unfit to live with others and unfit to live alone. Worry, why worry? What can worry do? It never keeps the trouble from overtaking you. Then the second part of this poem says this. Pray. Why pray? What can worry do? Praying really changes things, arranges life anew. It's good for digestion, gives peaceful hours at night, and fills the greyest, gloomiest days with rays of glowing light. It puts a smile upon your face and the love note in your tone, makes you fit to live with others and fit to live alone. Pray. Why pray? What can praying do? It brings God's love and power from heaven to live and work with you. It's a very provocative thought for all of us. You see, I personally have gone through some experiences in my own life where I've ended up worrying sometimes and I shouldn't have. It depowered me and it affected others. There was even one point in this church some years ago where I allowed worry of the loss of some friendships with people who got themselves in a bit of a mess, and allowed that to control me at points. But it reminds me of a place on a tramping track in Wangapeka, in the South Island. It's a place called Helicopter Flat. Any of you that will visit there one day can read in the logbook of the hut that's there, the cabin, about a situation that was really tragic. In fact, it's happened more than once in this place. In the middle of January, when it's normally hot and warm, a snowstorm came. Some people went up a track because they were worried that people would be worried about them. So they tried to take the track in the middle of the snow, but the trouble is when it's snowing in those tracks, it's really quite dangerous. Because it's hard to see the tags. And they missed one tag and they took a wrong fork. This fork took them to the top of a mountain nearby, where they ended up being horribly exposed to the weather conditions. And because of their worry about not getting back in time, they ended up dying of exposure. And the reason it's called Helicopter Flat, because one of the very early helicopters in the early days of helicopters in New Zealand managed to fly and land there and go searching and try and find them. But really, they died of worrying, not because they were worrying all the time, but because they were worried about the wrong things. I always remember visiting Helicopter Flat and reading through the logbook and still feeling the impact of the sadness of the event that happened years and years ago. You see, their story still impacts us today because they worried about something they shouldn't have worried about. They had plenty of food. They could have stayed in the hut for a couple of days. They would have been fine. They would have been safe. They could have kept warm. But they died from worry. I want to say, we don't need to die from worry. We can live with hope. We can live without despair. We can live with opportunity facing us in the face. We can grab hold of it if we're prepared to put those things aside. Now, I want to finish by saying this to you this morning. If any of you people, and you know that worry is a thing that bothers you, we don't want to just leave you hanging here. We want to give you the opportunity to be able to come and talk with us, and we're prepared to help you through the journey. But I want you to understand one thing. We actually have, those of us who claim to be the followers of God and have a relationship with God now, we don't need to worry. Whether I live or die today or tomorrow, doesn't really matter. I went through a little period of wondering whether I should be really concerned about my children more than I was being concerned. But I shouldn't. Because as the reading we had earlier said, surely we can trust God. If He can look after the birds, and He cares for us at a greater level, then He can look after us. So I'd like to say that we'd love to offer you the opportunity to come and sit down and talk and maybe go through a counselling process or whatever. We can maybe give you some help to work through some of the things that you've been facing. Because what we would love for you, every person here, whether you claim to be a Christian or not, is that you would go out of this place knowing that you could have hope and that worry wouldn't be a controlling factor in any aspect of your life from the next few days or weeks onwards. Because I want to be realistic and say it doesn't just happen like that for some people. There's a process. But we'd love to be able to help you. But I think the only real way of you being free is to know that God cares for every aspect of our lives. And He doesn't want us to worry. He wants us to feel safe because He's with us. Let's talk to Him. Father God, we want to come to You today and ask that You would be able to take what we've done and change it. You've told us so clearly not to worry, but we confess there are times when we've done it and we know it's not been good for us. And often our worry's been unnecessary and we've put ourselves through stress and ended up with ulcers and all sorts of things sometimes. God, we'd love to have nights every night that are free and peaceful and we can have good sleep and not be worried. We'd ask for Your forgiveness for the times we've not let You be there for us and help us through the tough things. And we'd like to invite You this morning to be there. And we'd like to say that we don't want to continue doing things that are not good in Your eyes. We'd like to do things that are right in Your eyes. And one of the things we'd like to do is to really trust You, to have hope, an expectation that's great. So we pray You'll help us in Jesus' name. And they all said? They all said? May the Lord bless you. May you be free from worry. May your hope reach heights that you've never ever anticipated before. And there's a cup of tea waiting. So, bless you.